Right.
Yeah. Half hours. I got half this.
There you go.
All right, welcome everybody. It's 9:05, now 9:06 a.m. I'll call this meeting to order. Harmony, just when you're ready, if you follow.
Director Bradley,
Here.
Director Brems,
Here.
Director Cardenas,
Here.
Director Daly,
Here.
Director Keithley, Director Litvack,
Here.
Director Olson,
Here.
Director Peterson,
Here.
Director Prokopis,
Here.
Director Silvestrini, Director Stevenson.
Here. Thank you. All right, first up, we've got public comment. Do you have any public comment today? Seeing none in the room, I'll just quickly say that I think we at the last board meeting we announced that we were doing this, but the three cities have been meeting with each of the townships. So at this point, we've had a few of those meetings. We want to get through all of those before we come back and give a bigger update. Part of that is to talk through where each individual community is kind of at in their thinking, how confirming the commitment to a UPD model, and then how we can ensure that all of that can be paid for, and talk through some of the details like that. So again, that has begun. They've been constructive, productive conversations. So just know that those are happening. And hopefully by September, we can come back and give a larger update on that. Otherwise, we'll move into an update from Sheriff Sarah.
Just a couple things. First of all, I'm going to let you know that the DEA narcotics conference was held a week ago, and many of the UPD officers received some awards. So we're going to send out an email once we gather all the information on which awards they actually received. But kudos to those guys. Many of them were from the Metro Gang Unit. So great work on those, the DEA and Metro Gangs. Just wanted to put that out there in case you see that email. That's what that's going to be about. Also, at the last board meeting, board member Prokop was asked about the BOCA grant, whether or not there was a match, and I said no. There's actually is a match, but it doesn't impact the budget. So we paid the match 25% out of the current wages. So I just want to clarify that for you, because I said no at the time. So and then also, as you know, Chief Mazarin and Under Sheriff Peterson are still working on reorganization of UPD, reorganization of the Law Enforcement Bureau. And with that piece, for the Salt Lake County side, we had gone to the County Council on Tuesday and asked for 3 FTEs so we can bring some people over to help Under Sheriff Peterson. They approved that. So we opened up a hiring for a chief deputy, a deputy chief, and a office coordinator. And our hope is to fill those in the next couple of weeks. Pick a person and then bring them over and continue working on that reorganization of that bureau. With that, there would be an impact to UPD if we choose someone from UPD. That is my intent. We've committed to that. However, there are other people from outside of UPD who are applying as well. So I just want you to know that we'll do everything we can to not impact UPD, but taking people out at that rank will have an impact. And basically, if we take out, say it's a deputy chief from UPD, that person would be gone, but we'd have to promote somebody else into that position. So there's going to be some chain reactions of who, depending on who we select. It's lieutenant level and above that can qualify for the position. So just wanted to put that out there. So if you have any questions for me regarding that, this is where it starts to get a little bit tough of how we keep things, current operations running, but at the same time create two different models. So
Do you
I
have,
might be mistaken, but I thought January was the timeline to start hiring for the sheriff's office side.
not for the
Overall.
higher rank.
Okay.
Yeah, our intent is come January with the county budget is to request funding for more positions to slowly bring people on. So the impact isn't, hey, we're gone. We're trying to manage that in a way where the impact's not so significant.
will that be? So taking countywide services, I mean, is that, do you expect these initial hires just to come from those who are already paid for by county direct funds? Anyway,
No, we opened up to anybody in UPD to apply. So they could come from anywhere in UPD. It wouldn't be fair to open it up to countywide services who's, the folks that are in there would be fair to the UPD officers if we were being selected in that way. So we opened it up to any lieutenant and above in UPD or the sheriff's office.
What's their closing date? Are they all three closing at the same time?
Oh, I believe the closing day is August 21st. We're going to conduct some informal interviews August 23rd. And hopefully by August 29th, if we don't need more second interviews, we'll have somebody selected. Now, these are appointed positions, so I could just appoint whoever I wanted. But I wanted to give the opportunity to those who are interested, because I think it's good for your career to have those opportunities. Any questions from anybody else regarding that? Any other questions from anyone? We'll keep you updated as much as we can. And I know with the work sessions, we'll have Chief Mansaran and Under Sheriff Peterson ready to give some more updates. So, okay.
all right, item 4 is an update on the interlocal committee meeting. Mayor Silvestrini is not here, so I've asked her to give a brief update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I first of all appreciate the board's indulgence while I was gone. I had to send out a draft of the interlocal, the first draft. I'm sure there are going to be more than a few. And when we met and went through it, it was, first of all, very beneficial in that there were suggestions and concerns raised as to the first draft on certain provisions. It could have just been a word. It could have been a whole paragraph the way it was written. But I think that by relying on a committee as opposed to one person is great. It helps us as staff sort of focus on where future challenges may be, as well as changes that make a lot of sense. So from that meeting, I'm working on what would be the second draft now. That's going to be a red line version showing the changes. A couple of areas that one of the things we talked about was the departure formula. And in the departure formula, we looked at perhaps precinct assets, and the question came up about essentially, what do we do about fund balance, precinct fund balance? And so we're working on a proposal internally within the staff on how we deal with that. And we'll propose something at the next meeting of the interlocal drafting committee. That appears to be probably the most difficult issue, although there are some others we still face. But I just wanted to say I've been working on incorporating all of the comments, suggestions, and changes that came up in that meeting into the next interlocal. I'll be sending that out for your review. Ultimately, I'd like to try to stick to a timeline, although it's a bit optimistic, of having a final document ready in December by the board and then perhaps submit to various councils January, February, something in that time range in terms of something for approval. So it's on a fairly tight time frame. I know that UFA took longer, but we've got the benefit of some of their learning and their drafting in terms of how to handle this. There's still significant UPD specific provisions that need to be included. So with that in mind, we are adding some provisions to it. One of the great suggestions was the indemnity clause needs to be strengthened in terms of UPD indemnifying members. It was a cross indemnification clause, and it's something that we had in the first interlocal. We're going to be changing to include that. And one of the issues that was raised is something that ultimately will be a board decision, but we recognize that we currently have silos. We don't want to have what I think there was a general consensus. We don't necessarily need uncapped silos. There's got to be a way to reflect that the silos can only grow to a certain level before they become essentially detrimental to the organization and almost encouraging people to leave because they've got a big cash pile. So we're working on a proposal that would look at the question of proposing a cap on those. Also, something that would reflect that members have built up cash and don't have to walk away from that. But on the other end, we'll try to bring us a more financially sound basis in terms of the precinct silos versus the department fund balance issue. So that's going to be a little bit longer process. And if anything delays the rewrite, it's that, because it is a difficult question and it is something that ultimately will be a decision for the members. We are also, as part of this, moving away from the assets and liabilities analysis just because it's complex. I'm thinking that something that spells out in a more definite term what you get and what right now would be is precinct assets and some form of precinct fund balance would be your departure ability if you stay 5 years, if you give adequate notice, and if you don't do those things, you don't get anything. So that's essentially the proposal we're looking at right now. Obviously, when we get the revision done, I'll send it out. You can discuss it with your councils and your council EL, as well as your CIL council, and get back to us on further changes. But we're going to try to move it forward. Right now, we're planning on all members of the UPD other than Salt Lake County to continue as a member. We know that could change, but that's how it's being drafted, at least at this point. And we know ultimately those decisions will be made at some point in the future. There's just one rule is that in order to be a member of the UPD, you have to receive services from UPD and pay into UPD. So people who aren't in that situation, even if they're members of Slovisa, means that they won't necessarily be a member of UPD unless we're actually providing a service to them. So if there are current members who contract with the sheriff's office or something else, they would not be part of the UPD. They could join later under the joiner provisions, but again, that's something that we would look at going forward. So I would say this: the Salt Lake County departure wouldn't be impacted by this because this wouldn't go into effect until after their departure date, whatever that's going to be. And so as we go forward, it will be for members of the amended and restated interlocal. And one of the things we deal with is what does it mean to continue versus dissolve and reform? We've talked about this briefly, but I just want to say the intent of the UPD right now and the intent of the interlocal drafting committee is we are going to amend and restate, but not dissolve and reform. And that's significant because that means that people who are employed here will continue to be employed here based, of course, upon funding and availability of positions, but that we're not going to start over. So right now, that's what we're looking at doing. It's what UFA did. While it's a significant change, we don't plan on starting over and we don't plan on dissolving. So if that changes or if that is somehow deemed beneficial by the members, we can talk about that. But under the current interlocal, dissolution has to be unanimously voted on by all the members. An amendment and restatement has to be approved by all the members who want to remain in the new UPD. If you don't approve the new interlocal, you are by definition not a part of the new UPD. So that's why I ask everybody to pay attention. We want to move this forward as quickly as possible, but we also want to make sure we do it right. So it was a good first start, but recognize that there are going to be changes. There are going to be multiple drafts going forward. And we're going to try to meet at least monthly as a committee, as well as update the board and obtain input as we go, trying to meet that maybe December deadline that we've internally just set as a time period to try to complete the process.
I'll just add on that as a reminder that I've asked Harmony to notice those meetings and encourage our board members to attend that. I know that at least in Midvale, Livingston, we probably find a better word for this, but we are trying to get out ahead of any what I would call anything that I know that is going to potentially run my council the wrong way as we go forward. We want to get out in front of that, have those tough conversations early on instead of getting down the process with interlocal and then saying, oh wait, just kidding, this piece doesn't work for us. So just as Harry mentioned, with the precinct fund balance, with the that 5-year timeline, those are ones where again, Midvale's got some thoughts. They were trying to get those out early and would encourage everybody else to either take a look at the draft interlocal yourself, send it to your attorneys, and provide feedback.
So like I said, one of my goals is to try to get that out maybe by next week with the additions and corrections. The fund balance issue is going to be a placeholder until we have something that's maybe vetted a little bit, but know that if it's blank or if it just references precinct fund balance, it's something that we're working to define, and we'll make proposals as we come up with them, but we're not ready on that right now. So I can tell you that's going to be a challenge, but we'll do our best to meet it.
There's a quick question and maybe an opinion from the chair, but I was just thinking about what you were saying, and I think the point that he's making is we want that December rough draft to be as close as possible, right? So any major, so are we thinking that we're going to start distributing what our working copy to our city manager and maybe our legal counsel at this point, or are we waiting?
Well, I think we distribute it now.
Okay, great. That was my question.
This isn't a secret document.
Yeah.
It's an open meeting. We're discussing it. The purpose of this is to come up with as close to final as a document over the next 3 months as we can. 4 months, I guess, would be more appropriate. But yeah, and that's why as we do this, it is going to be a give and take. There will be multiple drafts going back and forth. We are trying to learn both from our experience as well as the UFA experience. One of the issues, for example, was does the attorney report? Who do I report to? Who makes decisions regarding hiring and firing? And these are issues that I think are both important based upon the UFA experience, but also our experience here in terms of just my time spent. And I'm sure that's the same issue with the CFO.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're learning from a lot of different experiential, I hope that's a word, background in terms of trying to come up with the best solution based upon our experience and upon the experience of others in terms of how best to structure this, working with the board, who will be having, complete say in hiring and firing of the chief and others within the executive level.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Look, I think if we get this thing finalized in March or April, that would be great, but I think it'll take 2 or 3 months for the various councils, once they get the rough draft, to get it through their council process. But to your point, I think it's smart to have our city managers and our legal counsel looking at it as it goes along. So by the time we get to December, the big issues have, if they're going to be an issue, we've resolved them in that process, which is, I think, Mayor Stevenson's point. So That was my only question. So I'm
Sure,
glad
I
we're distributing that.
appreciate the suggestions of your assistant city attorney, who was very helpful in the meeting, and I think that the input from others will be invaluable in terms of not only what will work for you, but what will work for all of us. And so I think that when we have that give and take early, we avoid last minute problems that may complicate the formation. Now, ultimately, the date is still up in the air too. We're shooting for July 1, but that could change if either we need to or the department needs, and subject to discussions with the county, we work on something different. Right now, the plan is to try to be ready to go July 1 with a new amended and restated interlocal going into effect there, which means that we do have to meet some fairly tight deadlines, but I don't think they're impossible deadlines. I think that we already are fairly far along in terms of our organizational structure, and now we're massaging the language to meet our needs. And so that's a very good position to be in. And I'm an optimist.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, item 5, approval of surplus resolution 230801.
Morning, I can click. This is resolution 23081 relative to the disposition, rotation of surplus vehicles, which is standard operating procedure for what we do with our vehicles and vehicles.
Questions for you, Don? Saying no, none, I entertain a motion.
To approve resolution 230801.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this passes. All right, upcoming meetings, we've got our next work session meeting, August 28th at 9 AM. We've got a UPD Finance Committee meeting on September 12th at 8 AM. And then our regularly scheduled board meeting on September 21st at 9 AM. Any meetings?
I think a follow-up meeting of the interlocal committee would be. I don't know if you want to set it now or if we want to have you circulate some dates, but I think a September meeting would be advisable.
That sounds great. Will you circulate some dates to the committee and we'll make sure that get that to the board? Thank you. Item 7, approval of the July 20th, 2023 UP board meeting minutes. Are there any changes? Otherwise, I can entertain. Yeah, I have a motion. Second. We have a motion, we need a second discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and it does look like we've got a closed session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation. Ask for a motion from the closed session for that reason.
So moved.
Second. Harmony, we call roll.
Director Bradley,
Aye.
Director Bruns, Director Cardenas,
Aye.
Director Daly,
Yes.
Director Beasley, Director Litvak,
Aye.
Director Olson,
Aye.
Director Peterson,
All right.
Director Prokopis,
Aye.
Director Silvestrini, Director Stevenson,
Yes.